Hi, my name is Sierra Jorgensen, and for our group, we went over the topic of learning disabilities. So we're going to start off by reading the definition of what a learning disability is. A learning disability is a disorder in which one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or in using language, spoken or written, that may manifest itself in the imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, write, spell, or to do mathematical calculations, including conditions such as perceptual disabilities, brain injury, minimal brain dysfunction, dyslexia, and developmental aphasia. So, some of the characteristics that fall under learning disabilities is that students struggle to read and write. They struggle socializing and talking to those around them. They sometimes struggle with depression and sadness. They struggle with anxiety and high levels of stress, and in some cases as well. They struggle to retain and recall information. They have a small attention span. They have temper, can't control their impulses, and sometimes it's very hard for them to focus. So some classroom challenges that come with learning disabilities are very different depending on the case. So each learning disability is very different, and we as teachers need to learn the best way to help our students learn through their disabilities. So one factor that can come with learning disabilities is home and school settings. Sometimes if a student is having a hard time at home with their school home setting, they come to school and they have a hard time focusing because of what is happening in their home life. And it can go vice versa as well. The image that you see now is an image that splits up what learning disability is. So it starts with the classroom environment, and then it goes to the foundational blocks of learning disabilities, and there's 4 under that category. And then there's processing with 4 in that category as well, and then there's conceptual with 3 on top. So we're going to start off with the foundational blocks of a learning disability. So the 4 categories that fall under foundational blocks for learning disabilities are self-regulation, behavior, emotions, and resilience. So we'll go over them one by one. So the first one is self-regulation. So with this one, this is when children's attention span and regulating behavior and controlling impulses is hard for them. These are things that make it hard to not only the student themselves to focus, but it also makes it hard for peers around them to focus as well. So this just creates a challenge because they have a hard time learning, and their critical thinking is delayed because of this. The next category in the foundational blocks for learning disability is behavior, which is covert and overt actions, including social skills and reliance. So with this one, it's just very hard because they struggle to talk to those around them, and when they struggle to do that, they struggle to learn the best they can, because when you're in a classroom, you're not only learning from the teacher, but you're learning from the students and those around you as well. So when they struggle to socialize, it's hard for them to be able to learn to the best of their abilities because they struggle to do that. The third category under foundational blocks is emotions, which this includes temperament and moods. So this can create a challenge in a classroom because in some cases students can get very angry quickly, and it can be very distracting for not only them and the teacher, but for the students as well. The last category in foundational blocks is resilience, which is how students view their successes and their failures, or their learned attitudes. So with this learning disability, it's hard because students either take their successes and failures to the heart, and they take it hard. So they struggle to get over their failures, and they feel like they are not going to be any better. And their attitudes toward learning are just very down in some cases. And in others, they could have a very up and going attitude about learning, but then when they fail, they have a hard time coming back from that. So those are the 4 categories under the foundational blocks for learning disabilities. So the next category is processing blocks, and there's 4 listed under this one. So the first one is phonological, the second one is orthographic, and then memory, and then motor. So we'll just go down one by one. So with phonological, it's processing and oral language ability that helps individuals to understand the sound structure of speech. So they struggle to read and spell and to be able to understand what some people are saying. So this is hard in a classroom setting because they struggle to understand what you as a teacher are telling them and what the peers are telling them as well, or what they're learning from others. And struggling with reading and writing is hard as well, because when they struggle with that, they sometimes can become insecure and not want to read or write anymore. So the next category under processing blocks is orthographic, which is the writing system of language, punctuation marks, capitalization marks, and spelling patterns. So this learning disability, students just struggle to write and use punctuation marks in accurate places. So, and they have a hard time recalling letters in the strings of word forms. So the third one is memory, and this is, I feel like, one of the most common ones with learning disabilities, which is when they struggle to retain information either from the classroom or from home. And so because of that, they have a hard time remembering what they learned, and so they struggle to learn more. The last one for processing blocks is motor, which motor tasks involving small muscles used in writing and drawing. So basically they just struggle to write and draw in a classroom setting. So under all these processing blocks, it's basically just reading, writing, and remembering things that learning disabilities can create a struggle for. So the last category for this learning disabilities is the conceptual blocks. So there's 3 under this category, and it's verbal, nonverbal, executive functions. So with verbal, it's hard for them to understand what they're hearing. Sometimes they get words mixed up, and they have a hard time comprehending expressions and ideas and through reading and writing and learning how to use vocabulary and solving math problems. So with this, it's just hard because they have a hard time wrapping their head around what they are being taught. With nonverbal, they have a hard time thinking with images and thinking in patterns, which can create a challenge, because when they're memorizing what they learned or remembering what they learned, they can't fully think about what they learned. And then the last one is executive functions, which is when they encompass the abilities to monitor performance and act strategically. So it's just hard for them to perform and do actions that are required of them to do in classroom settings, because they don't fully understand what they're being asked to do, or they just can't wrap their head around it. So now that we've gone over that, we're going to go over some medical advancements for learning disabilities. So with learning disabilities, there's so many different ones. There's ones that make it hard for students to read or write and hear. There's others where they struggle with depression and anxiety. So there's just so many different kinds. And with medical advancements, it's hard because learning disabilities have no cure. There are many ways to make it easier to learn and to make it so they struggle less while learning. But overall, there's no medical ways that we can fully help them to recover from that. So some ways that we have found to help students learn through their disability is there's special education services, or like classes where teachers will take time to be able to slowly go through things with them and help them to understand. And the more they do that, the easier it'll become, and the less their disability will create a challenge for them. There's many different programs that they have to help with learning disabilities, and they help them to overcome their challenges. So those are a few things that help with learning disabilities and help your students and children to overcome them. So that is pretty much all that we have regarding learning disabilities. Here are some resources that we found our information from and some citations. But overall, we just need to make sure that we are aware of learning disabilities in our classroom, and we need to do our best to help our students to overcome them and to be able to learn the best they can and to gain a better understanding and knowledge of what they're learning.